something scary? Two 12-year-old girls from South Korea, Mi and Jin, had just arrived at camp for the summer. Both had never been before, although Mi frequently camped with her family. Their first day was exciting, getting to know their fellow campers and doing outdoor activities. At the end of the day, the camp quickly quieted down during the night. But Jen couldn't sleep. She wanted to explore more of the campgrounds at night. She woke up Mi and fibbed that she needed someone to go to the bathroom with her. Jen knew if she told Mi her true intentions, that she would never go. Mi always followed the rules, while Jen would question why there were rules in the first place. Once they arrived at the small building holding the bathrooms, Jen figured she might as well go while she figured out how to get Mi to go exploring. Mi, eager to get back to bed, told her, "I'll stay out here and wait for you." As soon as Jen entered the bathroom, she felt something was off. It was freezing in there. She flipped the light switch on. One dimly lit bulb flickered on, just barely enough to make out the bathroom stalls directly in front of her. Shivering, suddenly having to go to the bathroom more than ever, she started moving towards the stalls. Reaching out her hand to the first stall, she felt something like strands of hair whip across her face. Stunned, she jumped back. In the corner of her eye, something moved off to the right of her. Spinning towards it, a woman with long black hair covering her face stood in the corner, silent, waiting. Jen abruptly turned around and sped out the door. Grabbing Mi, she pushed her towards the path back to their cabin. All thoughts of exploration forgotten, Jen couldn't have seen what she just saw. It must have been her imagination getting the best of her. "Are you okay?" Mi chuckled. "I thought for sure you got me out here so you could go exploring." Jen stammered. "I thought I saw something, someone, a camper maybe? It kind of looked like something from a horror movie. I don't know." Mi stopped dead in her tracks, looking behind Jen at the bathroom door. "Wait," she looked very concerned. "What's the date?" Jen stopped, staring at Mi, wondering what was going on. Mi continued worriedly. "It's the Chakuchen, on dates with a 6 in it. The only way to safely use a bathroom at night is to cough 3 times before entering and to carry food as tribute."
Let's talk about the Hwasong serial case, one of Korea's worst serial M-word cases ever. The criminal brutally and sickeningly ended the lives of more than 10 women, primarily in or around a South Korean city called Hwasong. The criminal would usually target isolated women. You see, in Hwasong City, it was very easy for a person to walk long distances all by themselves late at night. Criminal would violate these people's bodies. In several cases, he would gag the woman's mouth or body with their own undergarments. Then, after his deed was over, he would stuff them inside some sort of enclosed area, like what you see behind me. The most well-known of these cases is the woman with the red skirt and red shoes. In this case, the red skirt lady had just gone on a blind date. It was raining that day. The blind date that she had gone on was very pleasant. She met a nice man, and afterwards, the man and her had separated. However, she wasn't coming back home, so her family got concerned and called the blind date man. The blind date man stated that he had sent the lady back home a while ago. He sent her home by bus. Later on, a separate witness stated that they saw the red lady getting off a bus at night. A week later, her body was found in a bank. Her hands were tied behind her back with her own blouse. Her red skirt and jacket were still on. Her stockings were tied around her neck. Her undergarments were on, but they were inside out, showing that someone had tampered with them. Worse yet, there was an umbrella stuck inside her. I can't even say it here. Male fluids were found at the scene. This case was terrible because for most of the victims, they would have encountered the criminal in terrifying situations. For example, for one lady, she was a grandma who was over at her daughter's house. She didn't want to stay over and she wanted to go home, so at night, she basically walked across a mountain path. Unfortunately, she was a victim of the criminal. Because until recently, they didn't catch the criminal, there was a movie made about him. Spoiler alert, in the movie, there's a chilling scene where seemingly the actor stares into the camera. Many believe that that scene signifies that we know that the criminal's still out there, and it could be anyone. For years, there was only little evidence about who the criminal was. The only person who could describe the criminal was a bus driver, and what you see behind me is the drawing based on the description. See Lee Chun-jae behind me. He is the culprit behind the Hwasong case. Some had theorized for years that the actual person might already be in prison. That's indeed what happened. Lee Chun-jae had already been in prison for ending the life of his sister-in-law. So many more details and caveats about this case, but I can't fit it all in here. Maybe I'll talk about it more in the future.
Have you ever heard of the Korean urban legend of the Han River Mermaid? The Han River Mermaid is an intriguing legend from South Korea that revolves around a mythical creature believed to reside in the Han River. According to the legend, the Han River Mermaid is a beautiful aquatic being with the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a fish. The Han River, which flows through Seoul, is a significant landmark in South Korea, and the legend adds a touch of mystique and allure to its waters. The mermaid is said to have long flowing hair, a mesmerizing voice, and a captivating presence. It is believed that she appears to unsuspecting individuals near the riverbank, often at dusk or during moonlit nights. The Han River Mermaid is portrayed as a mysterious and enchanting creature. Legend has it that she lures people towards the water's edge with her captivating voice, beckoning them to join her in the depths of the river. Some versions of the story suggest that those who are enticed by her beauty and succumb to her call may meet a tragic fate, never to return to the surface again. The Han River Mermaid legend has captured the imagination of many and became a part of Korean folklore and popular culture. The story reflects the fascination with mythical creatures and the allure of the natural world, particularly the rivers and waterways that hold a special place in people's hearts and imaginations. Have you ever heard of the Korean urban legend of the Dokkaebi? Dokkaebi are supernatural creatures from Korean folklore. They are often depicted as mischievous and playful goblins or trickster spirits. Dokkaebi are known for their distinctive physical characteristics, such as their short stature, red or blue skin, long noses, and wide grins filled with sharp teeth. According to Korean folklore, Dokkaebi possesses extraordinary powers and abilities. They are said to have the ability to shapeshift, disappear at will, and control the elements. Some legends suggest that Dokkaebi can bring good fortune and prosperity, while others portray them as unpredictable beings who enjoy playing pranks on humans. Dokkaebi are often associated with specific objects, such as hats, canes, or magical items. These objects are believed to be the source of their power or symbolize their status as supernatural beings. In folklore, it is said that if a person is able to capture a Dokkaebi's hat or cane, they can gain control over the Dokkaebi or make a wish. Dokkaebi stories and legends are a popular part of Korean culture and have been passed down through generations. They are often featured in traditional folk tales, plays, and modern media, including books, movies, and television shows. The depiction of Dokkaebi can vary, ranging from mischievous and playful to more malevolent and sinister, depending on the specific story or adaptation.
Let's talk about that creepy time in South Korea in which women stalked young women. Or were they men? So in South Korea, it's common to find isolated alleyways and corridors like you see behind me. Imagine that you are this young woman behind me. One day, you met up with a few friends, had some drinks, and are coming back home. On the way home, you have to go through these isolated alleyways and corridors. However, going back home, you get this eerie feeling. At first, you look back, and you notice that at a distance, there's a tallish woman behind you. It feels a little eerie, but it's a fellow woman, so you just go forward. You think she's gone, but it feels eerie, so you look back again. To your dismay, you find that she was taking the same path as you, which is not that common. For those of you who missed it, look at the picture. Now you, the young lady who's a lot closer to home, look back again, and there she is. But now that you have a closer look, something is really off. You look closely, and it's not a woman. It's a man. A tall man dressed as a woman. And for some reason, he's following you. Bravely, the young woman in this situation, once she figured out that this man was following her, confronted him. And he promptly stood there awkwardly and eventually left. Yeah, it's not very pleasant. Now let's go to situation number 2. Now South Korea is full of huge apartment complex neighborhoods where it's very easy to get lost in one, and it's also easy to be isolated in one. Now one day, a young lady was simply waiting in front of her apartment complex elevator, trying to go up to her room. However, she had a very eerie situation, so she decided to go to the security office to play back the security footage of when she was in that apartment. What you see behind me is literally the girl going back to the security ajashi and playing back the footage. So like I said, one day this young girl was in front of the elevator at her apartment complex. However, behind her, she felt a presence. She looked to the side and she saw the figure you see right behind me. She immediately felt something was off and left ASAP. It was only after she saw the security footage that she realized it was a tall man who was arbitrarily next to her for some reason. At the scene, when she realized when this man was there, she immediately went outside. But look right behind me. He waited for her in the corner right there. When she wouldn't come back, he literally went up half a flight of stairs and waited for her. Here, the young girl is literally right outside, looking in to see if he's still there. It's crazy because this clip is literally the girl freaking out because she only found out after the fact. You can see the actual footage on my channel. Stay safe, guys.
The famous Korean folktale of how the sun and moon are actually brother and sister? A long time ago, a tiger came upon a woman in the woods and ate her. He then wore her clothes and then headed to her house where her young son and daughter were waiting for her. When he got to the house, he knocked and asked the kids to let him in, but the suspicious children said his voice was way too low to be their mom, so then he changed the pitch of his voice. Then the boy asked to see the mom's hand, and the tiger reluctantly showed his furry paw. The boy then peeked the door and could see that it was a tiger dressed as his mom. The brother and sister then secretly went out the back door, climbed up a tree, and hid. The tiger came out looking for them, looked in the well and saw their reflection and asked how they went into the well. The brother and sister then giggled at his stupidity and the tiger looked up and saw them hiding in the tree. He asked the children how to climb the tree and they told him to rub sesame oil on his paws. This made the tiger's paws way too slippery. Then the little girl once laughed at his stupidity again and said they used an axe to climb the tree. Then as the tiger grabbed the axe and started using it to climb the tree, the children grew scared and prayed to God. Please let down a rope for us to climb and please let down a rotten rope for the tiger to climb. A rope floated down from the heavens and the boy and girl began to climb up. A second rope flowed down from the heavens and as the tiger began to climb the rope snapped in half and the tiger fell to his death. Up in the sky, the brother became the sun and the sister became the moon. But the sister was too scared of the dark night, so she asked her brother to switch with her. And that is how the brother and sister became the sun and the moon to give a constant light to this world.
This is a really creepy story, and it's just unfolding in South Korea right now. There were a pair of women's shoes that seemed to be pretty hard to get, but only 12 boutiques in all of South Korea sold this particular woman's shoe. Maybe this was even like a selling point for the buyers. It seemed like a good purchase until every single one of those women, they get a phone call from the police. And it was strange. The police called and asked, "Hi, is this so-and-so? Did you buy the shoes at this blank boutique?" "Yeah, how did you know where I bought it?" The police told the woman, "You're not in trouble. We're just investigating a case and we need to make sure that you're alive and well." These same women would later turn on the news and find out that the police were investigating a serial killer, and that killer had a pair of these exact shoes in his apartment, and the police suspected it belonged to a victim. The police also found a dead body shoved and locked into his apartment closet. It's just so freaky. Like, a lot of people have been talking about this in South Korea because it would freak me out too. I don't know if I could ever even wear those same shoes ever again. Could you?
Korean Urban Legends Part 1. The Virgin Ghost, or Chonayog Wishin, is a very popular urban legend of South Korea. This ghost drapes long white cloth on her body. She has long hair and she covers her face with it. They generally live in abandoned buildings, hospitals, or libraries. The girls or women who die virgin turns into the virgin ghost. If the virgin ghost is around you, then you will feel a significant drop in temperature suddenly. There are occurrences when the virgin ghost would tell someone to close their eyes and count to 100. If they fail to do so, she will appear in front of them angrily. Comment down below on a story you would like to hear next. Also, remember to like and follow. Thank you.
In the early 2000s, a series of killings takes place in South Korea, and the man responsible often wears a raincoat while stalking and murdering his victims. He typically targets rich upper-class couples and sex workers and is known for eating their organs. This is the story of one of the most prolific serial killers in South Korean history, and we'll be taking a deep dive into the events that led Yoo Young-chil to become the Raincoat Killer. Yoo was born April 18th, 1970 in Seoul, South Korea. His father, a Vietnam veteran, hasn't been able to bring in money to his family since he's returned from war. Being the poor kid in school, Yu gets bullied by his classmates, which fuels a hatred for rich people deep inside him. Around this time, his father starts to develop a gambling addiction, and when he gambles, he drinks, and when he drinks, he becomes a completely different person. Yu's abused for years mentally with hurtful comments and physically with his father's special hammer. At age 15, his dad gets involved in a fatal car accident, which leads Yu to finally start to come out of his shell. He's a hardworking student, a talented athlete in gymnastics and track, and he's even a bit of an artist. Yu even attempts to get into a secondary school specifically for art, but fails because he's colorblind. Instead, Yu begins studying computers, and that's when things start to take a dark turn. He then begins harassing his fellow classmates, is caught trespassing late at night, and is sent to jail for theft. However, when he gets out of jail in 1991, he meets his wife, and the two soon after have a baby boy. But over the next few years, he's in and out of prison several times for various crimes, so he doesn't get to see his family much. It's at this time Yu is sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for assaulting a teenage girl. His wife files for divorce, and he is left with nothing. When he's finally released in 2003, Yu immediately goes to his wife's home, where he sees his baby boy. He's seeking vengeance, ready to kill his son and wife, but when he sees his baby boy's eyes, he can't go through with it. Somewhere deep down, he's able to feel remorse and thinks to himself, they're struggling enough. However, this by no means satiates Yu's bloodthirsty nature, so instead he travels to a wealthy neighborhood in South Korea and breaks into the home of Mr. and Mrs. Lee. He climbs through the window and spots Mr. Lee sitting on his couch. Mr. Lee stands up in panic, and then Yu stabs him, and he looks around to find his wife. She assumes that they're being robbed, so she rushes to the closet, grabs all the money she can find, gives it to Yu, begging for her life. He then looks Mrs. Lee straight in the eyes and says, "Do you think I'm doing this for the money?" and proceeds to end her life with a hammer. This crime sparks the start of Yu's killing spree on the wealthy, which continues in October of 2003, where he breaks into another family's home. It's there that he kills a grandmother, a wife, and a son with a disability. Fast forward to December 2003, Yu begins dating a girl who works as an escort. He begins to fall in love with her, buying her presents and even getting to the point where he's about to propose, but that's when she finds out about his criminal record. At this point, Yu's left with nothing more than a broken heart and a deep-rooted hatred for women. This triggers him to target women who remind him of his ex-girlfriends, so he makes a call to a massage parlor and requests that an escort come to his home. But once the 24-year-old girl arrives at his apartment, Yu bludgeons her unconscious with a hammer and takes off her head in his bathroom. He repeats this hauntingly similar crime with 8 other women, posing as a police officer arresting girls, forcing them to call their parents and say they're okay right before he killed them. And the most disturbing detail of all, Yu would eat the livers of each of his victims. 2 days after completing his final murder, the massage parlor becomes suspicious. The next time Yu tries to order his next victim, they arrange to meet in public where he's met by the guys who run the parlor. They detain Yu, call the police, and he's sent off in handcuffs. However, a reminder that Yu isn't your average criminal, he's highly intelligent and he's quite the manipulator. He starts going absolutely ballistic on the police, acting like he's having a seizure and begging them to take his restraints off. They remove his handcuffs in an effort to calm him down, and when one of the police officers gets distracted, Yu makes a run for it. Thankfully, he's recaptured just 12 hours later, but if he wasn't, it's quite likely that to this day we would have a murderer on the loose. Yu's officially taken into custody July 15th, 2004, where he immediately admits to killing 19 people. On December 13th, 2004, Yu's found guilty on 20 counts of first-degree murder and is given the death penalty. While he does admit that he is sorry for his actions, Yu is quite adamant that if he hadn't been caught, he'd definitely still be out there killing.
In one of the most tragic and puzzling cases in South Korea, prosecutors are asking for life sentences against Lee Eun-hye and Cho Hyun-soo. Ms. Lee, the woman you see behind me, is being suspected of ending the life of her late husband, Yoon. The theory is that she was trying to get the life insurance money after he passed. Guys, I was just really speechless and listening to some of the evidence in this case. It is an example of a case where, whether you're a man or a woman, if your romantic counterpart does not respect you, you really need to be careful. Basically, Ms. Lee, who you see behind me, was married to the victim, Mr. Yoon. However, their marriage is just really strange. Although they're married, it seems like they didn't see each other. Also, Mr. Yoon lived by himself in some dingy basement room. Furthermore, although Mr. Yoon had a very good job, he had no money. It's believed that he gave all his money to Ms. Lee because she demanded it from him. He also had a lot of money saved up, all that also to Ms. Lee. It's believed that Ms. Lee used that money for herself or used that money for her friends. This friend that you see behind me right here is also one of the prime suspects. Guys, as a fellow man, some of these recordings are just mind-boggling to listen to. For example, one day, Mr. Yoon calls Ms. Lee. It's New Year's. Awkwardly asks her how she's doing, and she nonchalantly and in a seeming annoyed tone says she's with her family. Then he greets her and they hang up. Phone call didn't sound like husband and wife. It sounded more like a convo between some guy who calls a girl who doesn't respect him or like him at all, and he's trying to get on her good side. It was very painful to listen to. At a certain point, Mr. Yoon didn't even have enough money for food or water. And it's just so sad, tragic, and honestly even a little frustrating, because I think his family members who got really worried about him tried to ask him what was going on, and he wouldn't tell them. Ms. Lee seemed to have gotten angry at Mr. Yoon if he paid off something like his bill instead of giving her money. Got to the point where Ms. Lee's friend would take Mr. Yoon's car and pick Ms. Lee up with it. And it was just weird. After this case came out, eyewitness testimonies also called in saying they had weird encounters with these three. It would say that Ms. Lee would not want to seem like a couple with Mr. Yoon out with her friends. So in other bizarre occasions, it seemed like the two behind me were trying to do something to Mr. Yoon, like keep him outside when it was really cold. On around the date of the accident, Ms. Lee, Mr. Joe, and their friends would kind of bully and toy with Mr. Yoon, making him crack his head on a watermelon. Keep in mind, Mr. Yoon is like a lot older than them. Ultimately, they pressured him to jump from this high place. Drowning was the actual cause.
This man is the most prolific killer in South Korea's history. Born on February 24th, 1955, Woo Bum-kon would grow up in the city of Busan before joining the South Korean military and making a name for himself as a superb marksman. A dangerous drinking problem would get him demoted and transferred to one of the most isolated and least populated parts of the country. On the morning of April 26, 1982, Woo was awoken abruptly by his girlfriend swatting a fly off his chest. This caused a huge argument between the couple, with Woo storming out of the house. He spent the day drinking heavily before returning home, where he began beating his girlfriend and destroying furniture in a drunken rampage. From there, Woo left the house, walked to the police armory where he was stationed, and gathered several weapons including 2 M2 carbines and 7 hand grenades. Woo then went on an 8-hour killing spree, shooting pedestrians, local store workers, and even using his police uniform to convince people to let him inside their houses, where he would brutally kill all the men, women and children inside. In the early hours of April 27th, Woo was cornered into a farmhouse by a group of 37 police officers. When they made a move to arrest him, he detonated 2 grenades, killing himself and 3 hostages. In his rampage, Woo killed a total of 57 innocent people and injured a further 35, and that's why
The terrifying story of Sasha Kolotova. Sasha went to Seoul in South Korea for a few days, where she was having a good time. Kolotova is a YouTuber who uploads videos about traveling the world. Here is where the story gets really dark. While filming the video, she noticed she was being followed by a clown. At the beginning, she thought this was just a prank, or maybe he just wanted to come out in the video. But the clown started to follow her everywhere. She tried to walk faster. She even tried to tell police officers around the area. But when she would do this, the clown would hide. It is here that Sasha started to run in a mall, and she was able to escape him She continued doing videos for YouTube, but this was a terrifying experience for her. Have this ever happened to you?
어디야? 뭐야? 어디야? 너 뭐야? 잠깐만. 뭐야 이거? 뭐야? 뭐야? 여보세요?
네, 경찰입니다.
좀 신고 좀 하려고요.
네, 말씀하세요.
잠시만요.
This is Paranormal Storytime, Episode 7. So for this episode, I extracted a story from the comment section of a YouTube video. This story took place in a hospital in Gwangju of South Korea. The story goes, paranormal activities being shown up in hospitals are rare things. Once, me and my husband were in night shift with 2 nurses. I was newly working there at the time. We both were heading towards our cabin, and at that exact time, one of the nurses called me that the patient's pulse rate is going up and down. So I rushed there and saw him breathing heavily while pointing his finger towards the door. But surprisingly, there was nothing. After calming the patient down, I came back to my cabin and saw that my cabin's window is open. I didn't take it in any serious way and just went to close it. For your better understanding, let me tell you my cabin is on a 3rd floor and its window is facing towards the mortuary, which is on the back side of the hospital ground. It was like a basement, but still its gate is visible from the 3rd floor. Now when I went to close the window, I saw 2 people from inside holding the gate's rod like they wanted to come out from there. For clearer vision, I went back to my table to grab my torchlight and I came back and flashed it towards them, and at that exact moment, those 2 persons' body changed from white cloths to black with shining red eyes like it's burning. Shutting my eyes hard, I was frozen in place, trembling there. I wasn't able to scream or utter anything or even move. That's when my husband came and shook my shoulder and asked me what happened. I didn't say anything until we arrived home. After that, I told him everything, and later I got to find out that every nurse and doctor have experienced this paranormal activity. Black shadows with burning red eyes. I can just tell you that those are jinns. Now, if you guys have any horror stories to share, do drop them in the DMs and I'll share them when I'm free. Stay tuned for episode 8.
Did you guys know that more than 150 people lost their lives during a Halloween celebration in South Korea? This happened on October 29th in the city of Seoul when 100,000 people gathered on the street to celebrate Halloween, and all of a sudden, people started falling down this steep hill. It's still unclear what triggered people to fall down the hill, but witnesses said that they saw people getting crushed, suffocated, and stomped to death. Not only did more than 150 people lose their lives, but 133 people were injured, and more than 80% of the people that lost their lives were in their 20s and 30s, and at least 4 people were teenagers. So this is the little street that was packed, and this is where people lost their lives. You can see how small and confined it is. This was the first public celebration in Seoul in 3 years after lifting COVID restrictions, and people said that this event is usually packed, but this year was the most packed they've ever seen. An Australian man who survived this tragedy said that he saw as his friends slowly died, and that many people were laughing, filming, and were watching others get crushed.
There are some like crazy stuff that happens at night to girls, and you're definitely more vulnerable at night. You got pepper spray on you?
I actually bought it because there was a man who followed me to my dorm.
What?
Yeah. I went to the gym and then I was going home. This was when I lived with Sojang and Junie. He looked very messy and he had a suitcase and he was wearing a hat. So he was like right in front of the door and I was like, 아저씨 왜 그러세요? And he was like, and he was like disheveled. He was like, 몰라. Like I don't even know what he said. He was just like,
You told him like, what are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I was like, 왜 그러세요? And then he was like, so then I was like, for a split second, I was like, what the hell do I do? Because like, what if I try to go in and he follows us in and like he kills us all? Or like, I don't know, do I have to like kick him? Like, and then I just like put in the keypad really quick because it was only 4 like numbers. And then I like shut the door and then I was like,